They say you don't really know someone until life punches you both in the gut. I thought I knew Tom. We'd been married almost 10 years. I'd seen him sick, seen him stressed, seen him furious at his dad's funeral and still managing to hold it together for his mother. But nothing. Nothing prepared me for what losing his job did to him. Or to us. I'm Maya, 36. I work as an administrative coordinator at a private medical clinic. The kind of job that keeps the lights on but doesn't exactly light you up. Tom and I met when we were 25, both volunteering at a weekend blood drive. He spilled grape juice on my clipboard. I snapped at him. He laughed. That laugh, warm and self-deprecating, got under my skin. In a good way. We married 3 years later. Bought a modest townhouse just outside the city. Never had kids. Not because we didn't want them, but because we kept saying, maybe next year. Then another year would pass. And another. Still, our life felt stable, predictable, safe. Until the day everything came crashing down. It was a Wednesday afternoon in early May. I remember because I was at work, arguing with a supplier over a late invoice when Tom's name popped up on my screen. 10 missed calls. A voicemail that said only 5 words. Please come home. It's urgent. I imagined a car accident, a death. Something physical and irreversible. But when I walked through the front door and found him sitting on the edge of the couch, his suit jacket still on, his tie hanging loose, his eyes swollen like he'd been crying for hours, I knew. Something had snapped. I got let go, he whispered. Just like that. No build-up, no explanation. Just those 3 words, like they were supposed to make sense all on their own. They shut down the department. Downsizing, restructuring, whatever word they're using this week to ruin people's lives. He didn't yell. He didn't break things. He just stared straight ahead, shoulders slumped, looking like a man who'd misplaced his entire identity. I sat down beside him and took his hand. We'll figure this out, I said, before I even had time to believe it myself. But even then, part of me knew something in our marriage cracked that day, and neither of us would be the same after. I'm not sure when I stopped seeing Tom as my husband and started seeing him as a problem I didn't know how to solve. I'm Maya, the woman who used to believe in for better or worse, who used to wear her wedding ring like it was some kind of armor, who thought she was strong enough to carry 2 people through any storm, but when the storm actually came, I found out I was made of paper. Tom's layoff didn't just take his income. It took his spark, his rhythm, his reason to get out of bed in the morning. And slowly, it started taking pieces of me too. Tom didn't become cruel. He didn't lash out. That might have been easier, honestly. At least anger has movement, energy, something to fight against. But this slow, aching nothingness, it was unbearable. He spent most days in our guest room by then. He claimed it was just easier since I came home so late from work. But the truth was, we both needed the space. Or at least I did. I needed to sleep without hearing him toss and turn, without smelling that stale sweat and failure that clung to him like a second skin. I tried encouraging him at first. Why don't you go for a walk today? Some fresh air might help. Tom, you're really good at what you do. They were idiots for letting you go. You can't let one job take everything from you. He'd nod, say, yeah, or maybe, and then go right back to scrolling. Scrolling, always scrolling. Jobs he'd never apply for. Forums where men shared stories of career failure like war wounds. Reddit threads full of bitterness and blame. His world had collapsed, and he built a digital graveyard to sit in. The more he slipped away from me, the more I felt like I was losing myself too. I stopped wearing makeup. Stopped cooking proper meals. Stopped replying to texts from friends because I didn't have the energy to pretend things were okay. And worst of all, I stopped talking to him. Really talking. What was the point? He wasn't hearing me anyway. We weren't a team anymore. We were just 2 people occupying separate zones of the same house. orbiting each other like dying stars. There was a morning that sticks with me, a small moment, barely even a scene, but I think it changed something in me permanently. I was getting ready for work, buttoning up my blouse in front of the mirror, and he walked into the bathroom behind me. For a second, our eyes met in the reflection, just for a second, and I saw the man I married, the real him, the way he used to look at me, like I was something sacred, something lucky. But just as quickly it vanished. He looked away, cleared his throat, and said, "You left the coffee machine on." That was it. Not "you look beautiful," not "have a good day." Just a practical, robotic comment about electricity. I didn't say anything back. I just walked out. But inside, something collapsed. Not dramatically, quietly. In the way bridges fail from stress no one sees. He started drinking in the afternoons. Nothing obvious. No bottles on the table. Just a quiet buzz you could hear in the way he slurred when he got tired. I found empty beer cans in the recycling bin. More than he thought I'd notice. Once I came home to find the back door wide open. Our dog, Sasha, gone. He'd forgotten to close it after letting her out. He was asleep on the couch with a half-eaten sandwich on his chest. I ran through the neighborhood barefoot, screaming her name like a madwoman. When I finally found her, terrified under a neighbor's deck, I came back and shook him awake. He blinked at me, confused, and said, "What time is it?" I didn't even answer. I just went upstairs and cried into a pillow until my whole body hurt. That night, I told myself something I never thought I would. I don't trust him anymore. The intimacy died quietly. At first, I told myself I was just tired. He probably thought the same. But the truth is, I didn't want to be touched by him. Not because I didn't love him, but because he didn't feel like a man anymore. Not to me. And that realization broke me in a way I'm still ashamed to admit. Sometimes I'd stare at the back of his head while he slept and imagine a different life. One where he got back up faster. One where he looked at me like I was his reason to rise. One where I wasn't slowly becoming someone I didn't even recognize. One night, I whispered, "I miss you," into the dark. He didn't answer. I don't think he was asleep. It had been nearly 3 months since he'd lost the job when he finally said the words I'd been dreading and hoping for at the same time. "I think I'm depressed." He said it flatly, like reading a line from a news article. And for the first time, I didn't rush to reassure him. I just nodded and said, "I know." Because I did. I had known for a long time. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known then, was that his depression wasn't going to be what ended us. I was. It started with jokes. That's always how it starts, isn't it? Not with touches or secrets. Just small, harmless jokes. Shared eye rolls during meetings, quips in the hallway, laughter that comes too easily when everything else in your life feels like it's rusted shut. His name was Evan. I didn't notice him at first. Not really. He was in logistics, usually buried in his laptop or chasing supplier delays. He wasn't flashy or loud. Just relaxed. Comfortable in his skin. The kind of man who always knew where the good coffee was hiding and never missed a birthday. One afternoon, I was venting to a coworker in the break room about a rescheduled client call, and Evan chimed in with a sarcastic comment that made us both laugh. I turned to him, surprised. He grinned. "Sorry. I eavesdrop when people sound like they're seconds away from a meltdown." I laughed harder than I meant to. That was the first time in months someone had made me feel light. From there, it became routine. A shared coffee refill, a lunchtime walk around the block, a text that said, "Do not open that spreadsheet until you've had chocolate," followed by a small Kit Kat on my desk. It was innocent, at first, but I started dressing with just a little more intention on days I knew I'd see him, wearing perfume again, reapplying lip balm before meetings. I told myself it didn't mean anything, that I was just enjoying the attention, the feeling of being seen. But deep down, I knew. One Friday, I was working late, again, cleaning up reports while Tom texted me, "Any idea what time you'll be home?" I replied, "Still swamped. Don't wait up." I wasn't lying. Not technically, but I wasn't hurrying either. Evan passed by my desk, jacket in hand. "You're still here?" he asked. "Someone has to make sure next week doesn't explode," I said, trying to sound light, but I was so tired my voice cracked. He paused, then held up his takeout bag. "I got Thai. Enough for two. You want to split it?" I hesitated for a second too long. Then I nodded. We sat in the conference room with plastic forks, eating cold noodles out of cardboard boxes, talking about everything but work. His divorce, my hometown, his weird fear of squirrels, how I used to paint when I was younger but hadn't touched a brush in years. At one point, he looked at me and said, "You ever feel like you became someone you never meant to be?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because I felt it in my bones. It wasn't physical. Not yet. But something had shifted. The line between friendly and not had already been crossed. And it showed. When I came home that night, Tom looked up from the couch with those tired eyes and asked, "You okay?" I nodded too quickly. Just a long day. But he kept looking at me. Not like he suspected anything. More like he knew something had changed but didn't have the energy to name it. He didn't ask again. He just turned back to the muted TV and kept watching some nature documentary he wouldn't remember in the morning. The next few weeks blurred. Evan became my escape. I started taking longer lunch breaks just to sit in his car with the windows down, eating sandwiches and talking about anything but bills or job applications or broken marriages. He never touched me. Never even tried. But one afternoon, he reached across the console and tucked a piece of hair behind my ear. It was nothing. And it was everything. My breath caught. My skin tingled. And in that moment, I remembered exactly how starved I'd been for affection, for being wanted. Not as someone's responsibility, but as someone's choice. I didn't stop him. I didn't stop myself. That night, Tom made dinner. First time in weeks. He looked hopeful, like he was trying, really trying, to find a way back to me. "Thought I'd make your favorite," he said. "That mushroom risotto thing?" It was burned on the bottom. He apologized 3 times. I told him it was fine, but I barely touched it. The whole time I was thinking about Evan, about the way he looked at me like I still had color. I hated myself for it. And I hated Tom for making me need it from someone else. Later, while I was brushing my teeth, Tom stood in the doorway. "I know I haven't been me lately," he said. "I just want you to know I see it. I see you trying. And I'm sorry I haven't been enough." I paused. To this day, I wish I had said something kind, something soft, something true. Instead, I just looked at him in the mirror and said, "I'm tired, Tom." Then I turned off the bathroom light and went to bed. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't care if he followed. Some endings don't come with fireworks or screaming matches. Sometimes they come with a broken man on the floor and a woman who's already half gone. It was a Thursday, late April. The air was getting warmer, and the cherry blossoms in front of our house had just started to bloom, delicate and oblivious. I came home to find Tom in the kitchen, crouched under the sink. At first, I thought he was just cleaning. But then I saw the wrench in his hand, the dripping pipe, the soaked towel. His jeans were wet at the knees, and he was muttering something under his breath, a string of curses and apologies to no one. He looked defeated, like a man trying to fix something not just broken, but rotten. I stood in the doorway, watching him for a few seconds too long. And then I heard it. His voice, low and trembling. "I can't even fix this," he whispered. "I can't even fix a fucking pipe." He didn't know I was there. He shifted backward, hitting his head on the counter as he tried to stand. I rushed to him out of reflex. Not love, not sympathy, just pure muscle memory. The way you might reach to catch a glass before it falls. He winced, held the back of his head, sat there on the kitchen tile, wet and small and lost. I looked down at him, and the words just came out of me. I can't do this anymore. He blinked like he hadn't heard right. What? I swallowed hard. I'm tired, Tom. I'm exhausted. Of carrying everything, of pretending this is temporary, of walking around on eggshells in my own home. He didn't speak, so I kept going. I don't blame you for losing your job. I blame you for disappearing, for giving up, for letting me do this alone while you check out. He tried to stand, but I stepped back. Maya, he said quietly, please don't do this. Not now. Not like this. I shook my head. There isn't a right way to do this. It's already broken. He sat back down on the tile, head in his hands, breathing like someone trying not to fall apart in front of the last person they have left. I'm trying, he whispered. No, you're not, I said. You're surviving, you're existing, you're hoping I'll keep this whole thing afloat until you magically feel like showing up again. But I can't. I won't. He looked up at me, and I'll never forget his face in that moment. Not angry, not pleading, just empty. Like a man who'd been expecting a punch and got a bullet instead. So that's it? He asked. I don't know, I said. But I know I can't keep pretending. I don't even know who we are anymore. And I don't know who I am in this house. He closed his eyes. And then he did something I hadn't seen in months. He cried. Not silent tears, not the occasional sniffle. Real, guttural sobs. The kind that shake your whole body. The kind that make you feel like you're intruding just by being in the room. I should have felt something. Sadness, guilt, compassion. But all I felt was cold. And then I left him there, on his knees, on the kitchen floor, while I went upstairs and packed a bag. I slept at my sister's that night. She didn't ask questions, just opened the door, saw my face, and said, "You can have the guest room." I stared at the ceiling for hours, half hoping he'd call, half hoping he wouldn't. He didn't. And that silence said everything. The next morning, I drove back to the house just after sunrise. I half expected to find him gone, or angry, or drunk. Instead, I found him sitting on the couch, freshly showered in clean clothes. He looked up at me and asked one question. Is there someone else? The way he said it, not bitter, not accusing, made my stomach twist. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He just nodded. Slowly, like a man finally confirming what his gut had been screaming for weeks. Then he stood, walked past me, and said, "Take whatever you need. I'll be gone by tomorrow." That night, I slept in our bed alone. The house was too quiet, and the kitchen sink still leaked. It's been a year. 12 months since I left a man on his knees in our kitchen, thinking I was walking away from dead weight. Funny how time teaches you who is really holding what together. Tom didn't fall apart after I left. Not like I expected. He got an apartment downtown, small, modern, full of light. Got a job at a logistics startup 3 months later. Not a senior role, but something with growth. I know because I looked up the company, more than once. He grew a beard, started jogging, posted pictures from charity 5Ks and company retreats. He looks healthy, solid, alive, and worst of all, he looks happy. I still live in my sister's spare room. What was supposed to be a couple of weeks until I figure things out turned into months of excuses. I never went back to the house. Tom sold it 6 months after I left. I didn't even go to the closing. Evan and I fizzled faster than I want to admit. It wasn't some big betrayal. No dramatic affair reveal. Just a slow, awkward realization that we'd built something fragile on the back of my escape. Not on love, not on trust, but on need. And need isn't enough. He stopped texting first. I stopped answering. We didn't break up so much as vanish. People don't ask about Tom anymore. Not my coworkers, not my sister, not even our old friends. The ones who didn't want to pick sides, but slowly stopped inviting me to things where he might show up. It's like he stayed in the world and I evaporated. Sometimes I wonder what version of me he tells people about. The faithful wife who got tired of carrying him? The woman who left him when he was down? Does he mention Evan? Does he tell them I just gave up? I imagine he doesn't talk about me at all. That's what haunts me the most. The guilt doesn't come in big waves. It comes in quiet moments. When I see a couple holding hands at the grocery store and wonder if they fought that morning. When I hear someone laugh like Tom used to and it catches in my throat. When I come home to a dark room and remember how much I used to complain about his snoring, and now I can't sleep without it. I thought leaving would give me freedom, but all it gave me was silence. He sent me a message 2 months ago. Just one line. You were right, I did disappear, but I didn't think you would too. I stared at it for an hour, never replied. What was I supposed to say? I thought you'd stay broken long enough to justify leaving. I didn't want you to move on before I regretted it. I needed you to fall apart so I could feel better about what I did. None of that fits into a text. I saw him last week. Pure accident. I was picking up takeout from a Thai place we used to love. He walked in just as I was signing the receipt. Our eyes met. He smiled, polite, distant. The way you might smile at a former neighbor you barely remember. I opened my mouth to say something. He was already ordering. I left without my receipt. Got in the car and cried in the parking lot until the pad thai was cold. This is what no one tells you about leaving. They tell you it's brave, necessary, empowering. But sometimes it's just final. There's no do-over. No apology that rewinds time. No version of this where I go back and he says, I understand. Let's try again. There's just me, in someone else's guest room, watching a man I once loved become the man I always hoped he would, just not with me. Sometimes I drive past his building. I don't mean to. It's on the way to the pharmacy, or the vet, or anywhere I convince myself I need to be. I slow down as I turn the corner. I always glance up, trying to guess which window might be his. Once, I saw a woman coming out with him. She was holding a coffee in each hand, laughing at something he said. Her hair was tucked behind one ear, and he reached up to fix a piece that had fallen. It was so gentle, so easy, so not mine. I turned the corner before they could see me. My fingers shook the whole way home. I've written him a letter, 10 times, each version different. One starts with, I'm sorry I left when you needed me. Another with, I thought I was saving myself, but all I did was destroy us. One ends with, I'd give anything to start again. I never send any of them, because what would I be asking for? His forgiveness? Or his guilt? There's this image I can't shake. Me standing outside his door, hand raised, ready to knock. He opens it. Maybe he looks shocked. Maybe he looks angry. Maybe he just sighs. And then I say the only truth I have left. I was wrong. But that's not how real life works. There are no grand, movie-worthy apologies, no swelling music, no rain-soaked reconciliations on the front steps. There's just silence, and locked doors, and windows with the lights off. People think heartbreak is something that happens to you, something you suffer. But what they don't tell you is how it feels to be the one holding the hammer. How the echo of the shatter lives with you long after the dust settles. I didn't leave Tom because I stopped loving him. I left him because I didn't know how to love someone who stopped loving themselves. And by the time he did again, By the time he stood back up, I was already gone. I still keep my wedding ring in a drawer. Not out of hope, just memory. Some nights I take it out and turn it over in my palm. Feel its weight. The smoothness, the silence. There's no one to blame. Not really. Just two people who unraveled in different directions. And a woman who thought freedom meant leaving, when maybe it just meant staying and learning how to fight differently. I won't knock on his door, not because I don't want to, but because I no longer have the right. Instead, I'll keep walking past. Window down, radio off. Just me and the sound of what could have been.